is crunch day today, and of course we eagerly await what will be happening in Parliament that will adversely affect your pocket of moving forward. That is what we'll be discussing today in the market. But of course we have Patrick Obath as well here. Up and early. Morning riser. Good to see you. How are you?
Well, thank you.
So today, what do you see in your crystal ball?
I think a mixed outcome. Obviously, the Parliament will defend and retain what sort of lines their pockets.
Yes.
But then probably give out a little bit on what is our pockets. That's basically what's going to happen today. So,
do you think the Robin Hood tax will come into effect? Do you think also the national 0.0% will also
all those will come into effect because they don't affect the MPs individually. So that is almost like saying, give me the 8%, or I give up 8% of the 16, but I need something else. That's basically the battle that's going on.
But everyone is not saying, oh, taxation is not bad. Everyone is saying we want to tax, we want to be taxed as a nation. But is that the prime solution? Where we have the 16% on the VAT on petroleum products, have we really tightened, all the plug holes that where we know where tax revenue streams are not really forthcoming in terms of tax regime as well? And what other austerity measures can we put forth to try and stem this particular situation that we have in the country?
I think austerity is a multifaceted activity.
Yes.
And I think the delivery of service at a cost-effective way is probably most important. Most Kenyans, myself included, are very skeptical about delivery. I pay tax reluctantly because I'm not seeing the impact on me. Roads, health, education, you name it, everything else. The impact is not being felt. People are having to pay a lot of money into schools. When you go to health centers, you're not getting the care you need. All this is supposed to be funded by the tax we pay. What you're seeing is also the fact that there's corruption, and that comes to about between 8 to 10% of our GDP. If that was reduced and that was removed, we wouldn't need to be looking for taxes the way we're looking at the moment. So I think it's all around what to do with what is there already, rather than trying to get more. And if we can sort that out, and that's a difficult bullet to bite.
Yes.
And you can see that it's already happening. There's the targeting of corruption and everything else. That's fine to target corruption, but you need to target the integrity of Kenyans. I think that's really where we need to.
The integrity of Kenyans.
Yeah.
And of course, when we're looking at austerity measures and how we can foster that, it's a whole broad spectrum that we can actually pick pockets of it and discuss today, beginning maybe with the wage bill that is really bloated in this country. And of course, the issue of devolution. Is it really now hitting us, the reality of devolution? It is expensive to actually sustain devolution?
I'd actually hate to go and say we told you. Because in 2012, when we actually, in 2010, when we promulgated the Constitution, as a private sector, we said, what is going to be the cost of delivering this Constitution to the country? And at that time, first of all, we said that the government, the way it was structured, under that particular, when the meeting at Rift Valley happened, we said that the maximum number of ministries should be around about 15, 14. How many do you have now? 22, right? We talked about the replication of organs at the county level, right, and the increase in the number of constituencies, right, and the number of counties that we have. All this, if you go back to the promulgation of the Constitution, were warnings that were sent out, and it's coming to reality. And really, we need to reduce the number of counties. 47 is equal to the number of Kenyan tribes. Let's call a spade a spade. We don't need 47 counties which are based on tribes. We need 47 counties, or we need much fewer counties that are based on reasonable economic units that can perform and that can deliver. Because a lot of the counties that are having to be compensated can't really generate revenue, right? So that is why some of them are made a lot larger in the original. If you look at the original number of counties that have been proposed, if you look at the fact that we now have 347 odd constituencies, the idea was actually to reduce that number and also again make them into units that are better representation. So I think there's a lot that has been brought about by the Constitution that we put in, and it's probably time we went back and had a look at that structure. But unfortunately, it's the same people who have been put in that are going to change it. and nobody's going to try and sort of put in a chain that's going to remove their jobs. We are actually caught between a rock and a hard place as a country.
Right, indeed. And of course, yes, we are really caught between a rock and a hard place. And the Parliament will also today debate the controversial taxes and propose austerity measures aimed at plugging the huge budget deficit that threatens to sink the economy. Now, it is a moment to face the cruel reality of the state of our economy. The MPs should do thorough and soul-searching and act in the interest of Kenyans. On Tuesday, Kenyans felt betrayed when leaders of the main political parties whipped their respective MPs to take a common stand, support the 8% tax on petroleum products, billed as climb down from the 16% in the existing management law, that is a finance management law. Yet, on the other hand, President Uhuru Kenyatta had proposed far-reaching taxes that are bound to hit the citizens very hard. The housing tax for employees calculated at 1.5% of their tax pay, 20% levy on M-Pesa transactions, 20% increase in bank transaction charges, up from 10% among others, directly in illicit, I should say, deficit paying on incomes. M-Pesa has emerged as a popular platform for transactions and largely supports those in low-income brackets. Doubling the charges, therefore, is a major blow to them as well. So we want to see how this will pan out today. Our panelists will be here momentarily, all of them. Of course, we've had Patrick Obath, who is the Vice Chair of Kenya, that is the KEPSA Foundation. Also, he's the board member of International Chamber of Commerce, and we eagerly wait for other panelists to join us much later in the course of the program. Also, you can weigh in, hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is the Twitter handle, AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20505, that is 20686 is our SMS portal. We did away with 20505. But before we drill deeper, let's see what is headlining the front pages of the dailies today. We begin with the Daily Nation. This is your headline. Obado is father of Sharon baby. This is what DNA is revealing. 99.99%. The result of DNA analysis together with the expected findings on the material found at the scene of murder will help identify the actual killers and crack the case wide open. Governor's wife to be questioned as new evidence streams in from suspects. Also, you have killer had a clear motive. It says police believe that Sharon's murder was not the work of a killer seeking the macabre thrill of taking human life, but of a person with a clear motive. Clerk detained. Yesterday, a court in Kisii allowed police to detain a clerk at Migori County who often performs errands for the governor. He had surrendered to the police after a car registered in the name of his wife was linked, I should say, to the kidnapping and murder of Miss Otieno. The wife is a blogger in the governor's press unit. You can follow this story on page 6 of the Daily Nation today. All right, what will Parliament vote on? That is a question that all of us are wondering. Members of Parliament gather in Nairobi today for one of the most crucial votes in the House this year, one that will determine whether Kenyans will or will not pay more tax in coming days. President Uhuru Kenyatta's new finance proposals have divided Parliament, but a series of meetings in the week could have swayed the vote in his favor. You have this story well fleshed out for you on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. 8% proposal to halve VAT on fuel to 8% from 16%, 1% percentage of salary that will go to housing fund, also 15% excise duty on airtime up to 15% from 10%. This is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Also, looking at the sidebar, Tech Mwilu case to graft court. This is what Haji is asking. Director of Public Prosecutions says he was denied opportunity to file his response to petition by embattled Deputy Chief Justice that stopped her prosecution over suspected corruption links last month. Jilted lover held in probe into girl's killing. Police are questioning a former boyfriend of Meru senior resident magistrate in connection with abduction and killing of a 9-year-old daughter last week. This is what we have on the front page also of the Daily Nation. Let's see what we have. The Standard is up next, and this is your splash. It says, this is the day. Tax D-Day. MPs go to vote today on Uhuru tax proposals that touch every Kenyan, especially transporters, data bundles users, motorists, passengers, baiting groups, and bank account holders. Kenyans are watching how MPs will vote on the proposals that have split the political class and the citizenry. And you have this story tucked away on page 2, 3, 4, and 6 of the Standard today. Also, more taxes for Kenyans are also enumerated here or tabled on the front page of the Standard today. More tax for Kenyans. Motorists, 8%. Children, that is 20 shillings, not spared in Uhuru's new taxation, as sweets and chocolates, among other confectionaries, to attract the tax per kilogram. Of course, we had also from the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, that is Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, saying, of course, this is also a requirement from the World Health Organization in order to tame obesity. That will be affecting the children as well. Workers and employers, 1.5%. To see their monthly pay attract 1.5% tax to contribute to the housing fund that we're talking about. It is not 0.05 as I indicated earlier. Also, rural homes and slum dwellers, 18 shillings. The amount of money they will pay for every little of kerosene used as government fights fuel adulteration. Mobile money, each cash transfer to attract 15% excess duty. Bank transfers and ATMs, 20%. Use of ATM, checkbook, banker's check, over-counter withdrawals, and all other banking services to attract 20% tax. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard. VAT. All eyes are, of course, trained on what will be happening in Parliament today. Also, DPP back in court over Mwilu's graft investigation is what we have as a sidebar there, and you can follow this story on page 9 of the Standard. Also, Haji is seeking to have orders stopping his office from investigating Deputy Chief Justice lifted and allowed to argue its case. Showdown looms as Bobby Wine returns to Uganda. That is the story that you want to follow also inside the Standard on page 10 today. The Star up next, and this is your splash today. Ruto ally wants Senate scrapped. That is what we have headlining the front page of the Star this morning. They say Soy MP Caleb Kositani petitions Parliament to scrap nominated MPs, MCAs as well. He argues it will save the country over 3 billion shillings, but DP's spokesman dismisses it as just hot air. A Jubilee MP allied to Deputy President William Ruto has proposed the Senate be abolished and nominated MPs and MCAs scrapped. If adopted, Caleb Kositani's radical proposal will occasion a constitutional amendment through a referendum ahead of the 2022 polls. In a letter to the National Assembly Speaker on September the 17th, Kositani says the positions cost more than 3 billion shillings annually, a heavy burden to the taxpayer. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Star this morning. Still on the front page of the Star, we can see here a picture. Sharon Obado's wife and the probe, Governor Obado's wife Helen, can be seen here during a press conference in Nairobi on September the 19th, which is yesterday. And you can follow this story also inside the Star as well. MPs change tune after Uhuru cedes ground on CDF. Kalonzo backs cuts. President Uhuru Kenyatta looked set to have his way last night after Wiper MPs joined ODM colleagues in deciding, or I can't really read this, in declaring, I should say, support for his memorandum and proposed budget cuts. The MPs appear to soften their opposition after the government agreed not to slash the CDF at the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. This story continues on page 5 of the Star this morning. Also, NLC revokes hundreds of titles and crackdown on countrywide land grabs. Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi is among senior politicians whose land ownership documents have been revoked by the National Lands Commission. The NLC cancelled his title granted and returned their parcel to the Kakamega Golf Course and Country Club. Page 7 is where you can follow this story. Let's see what we have on the front page of the People Daily. I will lift this quickly for you and see what it holds for us as well. The People Daily. And this is your splash today. Tax debate. Not yet Uhuru. Of course, if you've read the book, of course, you can see also how they have very craftily used that particular title here. Tax debate, not yet Uhuru. Intense lobbying, anxiety with MPs caught between a rock and a hard place as they mild rejection of bill for the sake of Wanjiku or passing it as directed by Jubilee NASA party leaders. This story continues on page 6 of the People Daily. We have also bites here. House Speaker Justin Muturi saying, quote unquote, having PGs is not wrong. It is very okay. In fact, going forward, once we complete this, we complete the new building, we will allow our political parties to conduct their affairs here. Also, NASA leader Raila Odinga is saying, quote unquote, I can confirm to you that yes, I have personally called some members and got their assurance that they will support these amendments. Also, Kalonzo Musyoka, he says, the struggle is real, the burden is heavy, but we must strike the balance between catering for the welfare of Kenyans and meeting the development needs through the budget. Also, Rarede MP Otende Amolo is saying, my stand on VAT, that is 8% tax on fuel, has not changed, and I will still vote against the President's memorandum. You can follow this story on page, inside the People Daily, on page 6. A catch-22 situation here. Let's see what the Business Daily is holding for us. MPs face 870 billion shillings debt question in budget vote. Decision day. Parliamentarians expected to balance protecting the country's physical integrity against the pain in high taxation on those they represent. And this story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, Kevian Inc.'s potato seeds deal with Irish farm. You can follow that story on page 4 of the Business Daily. And also, we can see the chapfallen face here of Mr. Cyrus Jirongo, former Lugari MP, in a pensive mood at the Milimani Law Courts yesterday. Businessman Brian Yongo is seeking to have Mr. Jirongo committed to civil jail for failing to settle a 25 million shillings debt. The court ordered that he remain in custody until he raises a 5 million shillings cash bail to secure his freedom. You can see or follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, side by story there, mailers resold duty-free maize to government. Also, tough task ahead in Kenya's drive to improve its roads, and shilling holds ground despite IMF fallout. That is what we have on page 19 of the Business Daily today. We move on now to see what we have across the borders, and we can cross over to Tanzania, where we have a Citizen for you. First phase of SGR project gets 215 billion shillings surety cover. A New York-based multinational insurance broker, Marsh LLC, announced yesterday that it has provided $95 million bank surety solution to the company building the railway. You can follow this story on page 2 if you're waking up in Tanzania, and you can see a related picture there where Transport and Communications Minister Isaac Kamwelwe, it says, inspects a completed section of the standard gauge railway in Soga, Coast region. He is flanked by his deputy, Mr. Atashashta Nditie, and Tanzania Railways Corporation Director General Masanja Kadogosa. The railway construction is in its first phase between Dar es Salaam and Morogoro. You can follow that story on page 2, as I've mentioned, of the Citizen. Also, Chadema changes tack in new political move. You can follow that story on page 2. And TCRA cracks down on violators of online rules is another story, also on the front page of the Citizen. Media and entertainment firms wrecked in 1.1 trillion shillings revenue last year. That is how it is performing in Tanzania. You can follow that story on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Still there, we have Mwananchi as well. Chadema yaenda mafichoni, it says. You can follow that particular story. Also, we can see here mtoto aliyezungumza na John Pombe Magufuli, mama yake aliongea na Nyerere. That is the picture there, and you can see him carrying wad of cash there. Wanafunzi wa shule ya sekondari Ingwe iliyopo Tarime, Monica Bernard akionyesha shilingi milioni 5 alizokabidhiwa na Rais John Pombe Magufuli September tarehe 7 there. You can follow that story on page 5 of the Mwananchi. Let's cross over to Uganda and we see what the Monitor is holding for us. 500 city buildings to be demolished. This is on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Security chiefs in crisis meet over Bobby is another story that you want to follow. Police have banned processions to Entebbe International Airport by supporters to receive the legislator who returns today from USA. But Kiandondo East Member of Parliament has vowed to defy the orders, and this story continues on page 4 of the Daily Monitor. Also, let's see here what we have as a standalone picture. Wiggle, it's an elderly dance. 80% of Uganda's elderly poor. 80% of Uganda's elderly poor. This is what the report is saying. A cultural troupe from Budondo, Kagoma County in Jinja District rehearses before performing at the 2-day national conference on older persons at Golf Course Hotel in Kampala yesterday. You can follow this story on page 7 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Let's see what we have also in Rwanda and beg your pardon. Let's see what we have on the front page of the New Times in Rwanda. Mukabalisa re-elected Speaker of Parliament. This is what we have as a splash today. Donatile Mukabalisa retained her seat as Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies as a new look Legislative Assembly was sworn in at the parliamentary buildings in Kamihurura yesterday. You can follow this story on page 3 of the New Times if you're waking up in Rwanda. And also Rwanda secures 85 billion Rwandan francs to finance development effort, and public warned of potential disasters ahead of wet season. This story continues on page 8 of the New Times if you're waking up in Rwanda. So let me show you also what we have as magazines and editorial cartoons. We can begin with the Nairobi Monthly, the Nairobi Law Monthly. This is how it looks, taking all prisoners. And this is an exclusive interview with DCI George Kinoti, Uhuru's gladiator, talks about the honor of public office, his mission, work ethic, and thoughts on threats to the Kenyan state. You can follow, of course, this particular story in the recent magazine of a recent edition of the Nairobi Law Monthly. Let's see what we have also on the front page of the Nairobi Business Monthly as well. And this is how it looks. Makueni Rising, testimony of the power of a people-centered development. You can grab a copy of that as well. I want to show you briefly what we have on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It's not really a magazine, but this is how it looks. Korean leaders reach agreement at Pyongyang summit, and you can see them holding, of course, the pacts there. This is the agreement. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un announced an agreement on Wednesday on steps aimed at breaking a diplomatic impasse of the North's nuclear program. Mr. Kim said he will visit South Korea. You can follow this story inside the Wall Street Journal. Also, China volleys tariff back at US. Beijing tax him at $60 billion in imports. Trump weighs levies on nearly all Chinese goods. And judges accuse her. Royals hearing plan is another story you can follow on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, the latest edition. Editorial cartoons quickly. This is what the Daily Nation is holding for you in the editorial pages. And this is your editorial cartoon. Oh, forget it. The war on graft is just mere PR, public relations. And you can see him. This is a pose of just walking away from the Kenya ferry services. Of course, with wad of cash jutting out from the briefcases, or the briefcase and the gunny bag there. And we have also the People Daily with Stano. This is page 10. Rest in peace, I should say, Jatelo Omieri. Of course, you can see them mourning Omieri there, who will bring us rain. This is how it went. Let's see what we have also in the Standard today. Grow up and get a life, Governor. This is what the ladies are saying, and of course, following the fracas or the drama that we had with Pumwani Hospital. This is what Ghetto has done for us in the Standard. Also, The Star, and this is what we have in the Star as well from Victor, still on the governor as well. The editorial cartoon on the Star looks like this today. Very interesting, just following what was happening with drama also at Pumwani. Social media validation, cartels and Bagathi, right? Is this just for the optics, or it is genuine as well? And this is what has been captured there also by Victor in the Star. Right, those are your dailies. Make sure you get a copy of the Daily Nation and the rest of the dailies as well, or whichever paper that really floats your boat as well. Right, let's move on and to see what we have for you in the highlights. The government is boldly unrelenting in its quest to dig deeper into your pockets. Toll from Ethiopia, bloodshed rises to at least 58. And officials deny 87 elephant carcasses found in Botswana. Police officers raided a house belonging to the former Alliance for Real Change presidential candidate Abduba Dida, located in South Sea, and arrested 6 men and 1 woman suspected to be involved in a yet-to-be-determined illegal activity. An assortment of items, including hard cash in foreign currency, were also confiscated in the raid. Dida and the suspects were later taken to the Langata police station for questioning.
Suspicious residents of Nairobi South Sea Estate are said to have noticed some eyebrow-raising activities in a house owned by Abduba Dida, a 2-time presidential candidate. They then reported the concerns to the estate officials, saying they noticed high frequency of mass movement of young people to and from the house. The occupants of the house are said to have moved in September of last year.
The owner of the house eventually came later on. This was Abdi Diba, the former presidential candidate, who eventually came and said he's the owner of the house. So we asked him to accompany the police and go and record the statement. He didn't have anything to say. He said he would go.
A local member of the county assembly who got the information then decided to engage the police. When the house was raided, laptops, cameras, identification cards, foreign currency notes and mobile phones, some of which were hidden in mattresses and in the ceiling, were also recovered.
But whatever activities they were doing were our main worry, because, you know, we have had incidents of insecurity. We feared that probably they could be planning something or doing something illegal.
Routers were also found in the house, so were sex-enhancing drugs and contraceptives. In another room, a makeshift studio had been installed, and yet another section of the house, school desks were found stacked on each other. One of the rooms, which had campaign materials, is suspected to be Dida's home office because of its setting. The police say they are conducting investigations to determine what exactly the house was being used for. They also want to determine if illegal immigrants had been in the house and where they were from. The 6 suspects in the police custody are helping with investigations. Rich for comment, the former presidential candidate told NTV that the police have a right to gain access to any house, anywhere, and conduct operations. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
Now, 12 Chinese nationals suspected to be involved in a prostitution ring were arrested yesterday, awaiting deportation. Among those arrested were 8 women and 4 men. According to the police, one of the arrested female suspects was on the watch list since May 2017 on suspicion of being involved in prostitution and illegal gambling in the country. The suspects were arrested at a 5 a.m. raid in South Sea, Nairobi, before the Immigration Department initiated the deportation process. This comes as Interior CS Fred Matiang'i declared war on illegal immigrants. We must grow the economy, and we can only do this through additional taxes, so Kenyans must dig deeper into their pockets for this to happen. This is a message of the government as reiterated by the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, who defended the presidential proposals forwarded to Parliament for approval. Take a listen.
It's a whole process.
The National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich was before the National Assembly's Finance and National Planning Committee to justify the President's move to reject the 2018 Finance Bill and return it to Parliament with a memorandum. Here, he defended the new tax measures introduced in the memorandum, arguing that the government was in need of the money so as to plug into the budget deficit in the 2018-2019 budget and spur economic growth.
If you don't tax it, you have a lower tax base, then you don't progress. You don't progress. So you can't stop a tax and then you need resources to fund because another country is not taxing.
In the new tax measures in President Uhuru Kenyatta's plan, there are proposals to slap an 8% value-added tax on petroleum products with the aim of collecting an additional 17.5 billion shillings as a new income stream. The introduction of a 20 shillings excise duty per kilogram of sugar confectionery like chocolate aims to raise about 500 million shillings, while taxes on internet, money transfers and cellular phone services are projected to rake in an average of about 20 billion shillings. Also, in betting, the company and winners are to be taxed to raise 30 billion shillings, an increment from 9 billion. The Cabinet Secretary has further proposed an introduction of 18 shillings per litre of kerosene as an anti-adulteration levy on kerosene in an effort to stem adulteration of fuel.
Over 2 decades, the exemptions grew to 435 items in the exemption list. So that by the time we were reviewing the VAT Act in 2013, we were exempting virtually everything.
On confectionery, CS Rotich argues that the tax was informed by the World Health Organization, which says globally sugary foods are causing health complications.
The design of the excise tax is meant to, address the health impact effects, which we are doing in this, and actually all countries are moving in this direction. South Africa did introduce this recently.
CS Rotich insists that the new taxation measures being imposed on Kenyans are critical in driving the country's status that of a developing country and thus being less and less dependent on donor funding. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV at Parliament Buildings.
And Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has asked members of the party to back President Uhuru Kenyatta's proposal to slash fuel VAT from 16% to 8% in Parliament today. Kalonzo said the move was for the good of the country. This comes a day after the NASA coalition offered unconditional support to the president's proposal.
Everybody is feeling the heat, but there's a time when as a nation we must sit and reason together. So I would recommend that we listen to what Kenyans are saying. The cry, at least somebody give it to him. When it was 16%, the president was able to say, I have heard you. All right? And you can imagine the amount of agonizing he has gone through. I'm quite sure President Uhuru Kenyatta's intention is not to oppress his citizens. After all, they gave him a mandate.
Now, as legislators head back to Parliament for a special sitting to discuss the Finance Bill 2018, we asked Kenyans from across the country one simple question. How do you want your Member of Parliament to vote today? And here are some of the answers.
Tomorrow, there is nothing that I'm expecting, because they have decided to please what we call political personality cult. They are using the weakness of Kenyans to enrich themselves.
Wasipitise vile party rito wanawaambia waende wabitise waseme ya kwamba mafuta ekuche 0.
Let me be very specific to Honorable Kaloma, the constituency where we are now, that the people of Homa Bay Town constituency represent, together with Gladys Wanga, who also represent us as a MP in that parliament, as a county MP, that we do not want to see their names in the yes list.
Kwa hivyo hata hao wako nje wanasema hawatapitisha, wapitishe na waache mambo ya kushikana na wengine kusema hawatapitisha. Waongeza hata wakifikisha 30%, sisi wananchi tumejitokeza, tutavumilia.
We gave them power to represent us in the National Assembly. Now we expect them to help us in this situation, to vote against the wish of the president.
Ningeomba bunge lipitishe ikiwa 8%, sababu tumeangalia watu wetu, hatujawafikiria sana, na pia tumeangalia nchi yetu ili iweze kujimudu.
Wabunge wasikubaliane na maneno ya rais, sababu rais mwenyewe ndiye ameenda kukopa pesa zile ambazo sisi wenyewe hatuwezi tukagaramia.
Maoni yangu ni wapitishe asubuhi kwanza tena na mapema.
And that asubuhi is today, of course. We want also to get your views this morning. You can head over to our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle, AM Live NTV, our profile name on Facebook. And make sure also you like us, or you like our page there. Give us a thumbs up also. And you can head over also to our SMS portal, which is 20686. We want also to get to hear from our panelists this morning on what they think. Looking at the crystal ball, we had from Patrick Obath at the top of the hour, but now also we're joined by Charles Kalomba, who is the Secretary General of the Juakali Federation of Kenya, also an advisor to the Council of Governors. And we have also Dr. Debarl Inea, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Business, who is joining us. And we're eagerly waiting for Kabage Kabare also to join us much later in the course of the program. But let's just hear from what Dr. has for us this morning. In terms of looking at your crystal ball, how will this particular vote go today? Because it seems people are changing tone. On Tuesday, they were really looking, they have the vim and the verve to go full steam ahead and saying, we'll shoot down this particular bill or memorandum that really came from the president.
I think it's very clear they are voting yes.
They're voting yes?
Absolutely. If you listen to even the opposition, and I'm not sure whether we have opposition anymore, everybody's saying yes. So I don't expect the no to carry the day. Yeah.
So no will carry the day? Just
that's maybe.
I think they have already decided, and of course,
correct.
People have exchanged words, so people are sure they are going in decided. They have been either influenced or they have been made to understand why they should go that direction. So for us, we are left at the mercy of God, just to wait and see what God will say after that.
God has to say something.
God has to say something.
Patrick, I think we were here, and of course you've indicated for the benefit of the viewers who were just waking up this morning and joining the conversation, looking at your crystal ball, how will it sway today? You think
they're going to vote yes. There's no there's, as I said, there's two sides. There's a bit that obviously there's been a lot of almost like pre-bargaining that has happened in the last 4 or 5 days as they've been going along, and there's looking after the pockets of the parliamentarians and then making sure there's enough money for the government to run, and that has basically been the thread of discussions. And I think they've reached a compromise that will protect part of what the parliamentarians want for themselves, and also going to the constituencies and going to the counties, and then in the other way load up all of us so that we can meet that cost.
Correct.
I think it's
nothing else than that.
So it appears we've lost a critical voice when we have people who represent Kenyans and they have the interest of Kenyans at heart. The opposition right now, yes, is in bed with the government, so to speak. With since now the handshake came to the fore, it seems there's no critical voice that can actually question the government on this as well. So it has to pander to the whims of the government. Where are we left at right now as a country?
And I think it's very important to have strong, reasonable opposition. They make you see the other side of the coin. I think as we get in this, and it's extremely worrying. Yesterday, listening that, and just listening out to the CS Henry, he saw taxes. And I don't see the element of how do you deal with the elephant in the room, in my view, the luxury in terms of expenditure.
Yes.
You know, we just, and that's what is all of balancing the book. You look at the cost side and look where you're going to generate revenue. And I don't know how far we can go. How much can I squeeze out of my friend here?
Yes.
In terms of what he can provide in terms of taxes. And that's a return we shall look at it. If you look at the wage bill, and for no reason, I don't think anybody should get me wrong that I'm saying that we should decrease our salary. Our wage bill is far, far ahead than any other country you can think of or region you can think of. And I think it's a question we start going back and looking at our productivity.
Yes.
Because here we are, the real coin I'm going, and I think the point I made earlier on this show, and I'll make it again.
Yes.
In a government, find the easiest way to raise your money is through taxation. It's perhaps the easiest way and the most easiest way for any government to do that. I think there are certain ways we can raise our taxes, our revenue, and I think we need to address the side of the wage bill.
The side of the wage bill.
We need to.
All right. So I think because that is a whole gamut of austerity measures that we're going to be looking at this morning.
Sure.
We can pick, bits and pieces where we think this is where we really want to train our focus today. We can discuss, yes, the wage bill. And what other areas can we look at? Maybe hearing also from Patrick Obath. Looking at the tax regime, the tax collection, because I think we have a shortfall of how much right now? Around 600 billion shillings from the Kenya Revenue Authority. And hitting their target, they've actually managed 40% of that.
I think the structure of tax in this country is very, very narrow. You are targeting exactly the same people, and there's a limit of how you can be creative in taxing Patrick Obath, who's got a salary. There's very, very little you can go beyond where you are now. Now you're trying to look at consumption taxes,
yes,
airtime and whatever it is and so forth and so on. A slight improvement in trying to widen the tax base, right? But the quantum in that area I think is wrong, because it's going to have a knock-on effect on other parts of the economy, especially where it should not have an effect, which is down at the bottom of the pyramid. What needs to happen is that the tax base needs to be widened considerably, and nobody is tackling that. If you look at countries which have been successful in widening the tax base,
yes,
yeah, and I've said this several times, on not on this program, but in other other opportunities, is that if you asked every Kenyan to pay tax voluntarily rather than forced, and said, if I'm earning up to, and this is in the informal sector where there's nothing happening at the moment, if everybody was asked to say, right, up to 25,000 shillings of production,
yes,
in a Juakali kiosk per month or whatever it is, you will pay a tax of 50 cents, right? You don't have to fill any piece of paper. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is that by the end of the year, you need to have paid so much tax. You're given a PIN number and you're given an M-Pesa number to pay. So you're told that by the end of the year, we expect you to pay so much tax. And you work yourself. And you have those bans, and it's voluntary, and people are allowed to start doing it. Do that for 3 or 4 years. Then after people have started paying voluntarily, then you now go out to check who has not registered and who should pay. And you now begin to sort of push the envelope, and then you get more people paying. Eventually, you will have a very wide cover of people paying tax voluntarily without filling a single form. You don't need iTax, you need nothing. When you get to filling forms, it is when now, as a taxpayer, I'm looking at where I can get relief. And my business or my turnover is big enough for me to now start looking at reliefs and start filling in the tax forms. I will do it voluntarily because it is something that I should be doing.
Yes.
So I think we need to completely turn over the whole thinking of tax and begin to look at innovative ways of getting a wider range of Kenyans to pay for tax.
But I think
there's a bigger thing. We've also got to make sure that when I pay tax voluntarily, it touches me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the point.
So the guy in Gikomba who is creating all the whatever it is, there has to be water there, there has to be sanitary facilities, there has to be working roads, there has to be power, there has to be everything available to them.
Yes.
And when they see that as a result of their tax, they'll be willing to pay more. So we've got to complete that circle completely.
And
so
there's a country they are taxed 65%, but they don't complain because they see the benefits or even that high level of taxation. I think that's a point I was trying to bring, and he brought it very well.
Yes,
absolutely. I just came back from the Netherlands 2 days ago.
Yes,
and we were driving along in with a guide and everything else in a cab. There's about 5 or 6 of us. And I remarked that there's a lot of roadworks going on here and whatever it is, and they said we are seeing our money spent. That was a comment by the driver of that vehicle.
They're seeing their money spent.
They're seeing their money being spent.
The fruit of their taxes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. They can see that, you know, a junction became too clumsy, and they are just doing some very small modifications on that junction to make it better. And this person actually told me proudly, I'm seeing my tax being spent. Now, who in Kenya can tell you I'm seeing my tax being spent?
Right.
At that level.
Maybe Engineer Charles Kaloma can tell us,
Yeah.
do you see your taxes being spent
Debarl,
appropriately?
I went to a home in India.
Yes.
And I sat down, and they offered me food, and the children began to cry, and they cried bitterly. And I asked the father, why are these children crying? Then he called them and asked them, why are you crying? And they said, this man came in today and is eating food. What has he done in this home? we are eating less because this man has come to eat. That's what's happening in Kenya. What is happening in Kenya, people have been watching us and they are seeing our weaknesses. And that's why they are able even to export prostitutes now from China to Kenya. We don't have enough prostitutes in Kenya. So Chinese have come to fill the gap.
And they want to be taxed.
When an economy has no innovation, when an economy has no innovative minds, the economy suffers. So what Kenya's economy are doing, we are struggling on taxation of fuel. Do you have other strategies on an energy motivation? We have people all over the world using biogas as fuel in their vehicles. We have technology locally. The country is never hearing at all. So we shall continue to suffer. We'll tax fuel, we'll tax oil, we'll tax what. So when I look at this economy, I see a ground where Kenyans are really dying slowly. We are leaving the space for foreigners to come in because there's no innovation. So anybody in the leadership of this country is not innovative. So they feel, because if we were taxing cassava that is being planted in Kenya by farmers, I would be very happy because farmers would be making money. Where is the fuel coming from? From other markets. So when you tax it, you're only enriching other markets. What we need to do is to challenge our leaders to develop other alternatives.
Yes.
When you talk about fuel, let them develop other alternatives that we can use to manage this economy. I was looking at this paper on a page here, and I saw the CS going to visit, and they are saying transformers are faulty.
What page is that?
This is on page...
Daily Nation?
Yes, Daily Nation. This is on page page 11. CS speaks on faulty transformers.
Yes.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I'm heading there.
Yeah, this is a CS in Kenya speaking about faulty transformers, but it's not telling Kenyans how faulty are the transformers and what alternative do we have to make the transformers locally. Yesterday, I was speaking to Numerical Machining Complex.
Yes.
Do you know we have made a transformer locally, and I was in charge of that. And this transformer, what we need to do is just to improve on it and let the youth engage in the making of the transformer, and then we will not be speaking this language again. So if the CS is worried about faulty transformers, and it is where we are getting the power of the transformers, then he's worried about them. He's not giving a solution. He's only looking out there to see other transformers to come in which are not faulty. What is the cost of the transformers? Even as we talk about fuel, Kenyans are saying we are reducing fuel from 16%. When did it reach 16%? We are increasing. A half full glass and a half empty glass are two different things. We are not reducing fuel. We are increasing fuel from where it is by 8%. That should be the language. But somebody is saying we are reducing fuel from 16%. How? Fuel has been 115 shillings. From 84 in less than 6 months, we have reached 115. Then from 115, we are talking about an increase of 8% to make it 125. We are not reducing fuel from 16%. So that's the language of thieves, people who want to fool you so that you don't know what they're doing.
Right,
so what we need to do is to speak to the government and tell the government increase the fuel by 8%.
Okay.
Then let the taxes that is coming from the fuel work for the Kenyans. Let's have good roads. Let's have cheaper systems so that Kenyans can live good life. Kenyans are living very hard life, I tell you. Kenyans are almost going to the grave now. So forget about everything. Let's talk about no politics on this. If they are increasing 8%, let them increase 8%. Let's see very well that how is it collected 8%?
Thank you.
What is the role of the 8%? What is it doing to the economy? Not stealing anymore. I like Debarl. I heard yesterday that there are 3 guys who went to prison and they were imprisoned in Kenya, and because they stole land for graves. I saw them going to the docks. I didn't know they were imprisoned because I thought it was jokes. So yesterday I had, oh, they were imprisoned because I didn't have details. I was very, very happy, extremely. Because then it means Kenya is beginning now to move. Because in Kenya to imprison even an MCA has been a story of a hill, climbing a hill with a wheelbarrow loaded.
Let's hear from Karanje Kabage. Good morning, good to see you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Right, so we're actually looking at how to foster austerity measures in light of what is happening, looking at the crystal ball. I've asked all our panelists, what do they really see? Most of them are saying the MPs will give a thumbs up to, of course, the finance bill that was taken back, of course, to Parliament by the President with the memorandum, or yes, that was given to Parliament as well. What is your projection? What is your assessment?
Debarl, thank you very much, and my fellow panelists. Good morning, Kenyans. I think the issue that is being addressed here on austerity measures, they go to the core of the whole management of the economy of the country, and what should or shouldn't be done. But there is one thing that is very clear in my mind. This nation suffers from development deficit. And development deficit comes out of many years of non-availability of capital, lack of priorities.
Yes.
The issue of mismanagement, the issue of realizing development is painful and must be sacrificed for. Because to develop anything, you must sacrifice today. For example, let's take the Thika Highway. It cost 32 billion shillings. We didn't have that money. We had to get portion of that money from the African Development Bank. It's a long-term thing. It does just happen. So Kenyans must come to a point where they determine whether we are going to develop and what are the benefits and costs for that development.
Yes.
Overall. Now the issue you are addressing here as to how do we deal with the budget of the country is more fundamental than we are thinking about. For instance, let's take the new constitutional dispensation of 2010. And you look at the entire constitution from the preamble to the 6 schedules. Do you know you will not find a single obligation by Kenyans other than rights? Who pays for those rights? Is there a foreigner somewhere, or some manna will come from heaven where Kenyans are going to draw those resources in order for them to satisfy those rights?
Yes.
So when a lot of times you hear people talk about we want this, we want this, we want this, how many people ask themselves, what is it you're going to give up in order to get what you want? And that's the crux of the matter.
Yes.
For instance, my view, I'll tell you. Let me give you a very simple example. Nairobi has got 17 members of parliament. This is a 692,000 square kilometer parts of the land. There are 122 or 23 MCAs.
Yes.
Do you know there is not a single MP today, at a very minimum, who spends no less than 2,750,000 a month from the exchequer? If you work out that figure, how much does it benefit the Mwananchi? When did you hear a motion in Parliament sponsored by a Nairobi member of Parliament, member of the National Assembly, forget about the senators, right?
Yes.
That was really intended to address the challenges that we have as a city? There's nothing. What about the MCAs? 123 of them. How many? So we are inundated with a huge burden of elected leaders and nominated leaders. And when I talk about 17 members of parliament, I'm not talking about senator and even a nominated senator.
Yes.
So it's about 20 of them.
20
You get
of
what I
them.
mean? So we need to look at what have we put in our constitution that is really a big burden.
Yes.
Then we shall begin looking at what are the austerity measures that we should come up with.
The austerity measures.
So we have a very big problem.
Interestingly, you should look at what is on the front page of the Star this morning, because yes, there's one member of parliament who's saying, why can't we scrap, of course, the Senate, right? Ruto Ala wants Senate scrapped. He argues it will save the country over 3 billion shillings, but DP's spokesman dismisses it as just hot air. Maybe it's a debate that it should be sparked, and people are saying, what has been the role of the Senate anyway? Of course, they should be the custodians of the Constitution, but of course, this also will plunge us into a referendum.
I think when we start discussing the Constitution, we are losing the ball. We're losing it. To me, that's long term, and it should happen down the road. I think we need to address the immediate things we have. And I'll give you an example.
But how can we tell them?
Let me give you an example. How can Kibwana do a dam for 7 million? Somebody else in another county does it for 208 million. How does it happen? And they were there. The world say saw it. He's doing a dam for 8 million. The other guy is doing for 208 million. As much as we have that, and we have this brought it, and I think what Wakiri, I agree with you, we need to find a way of closing these leakages. There's so many leakages. Even the little we have, I bet we can do whatever we have in this country. We can do 50% of the revenue correct if we're prudent in our financial management. For example, this idea of borrowing left and right. And I think, let me get wrong, it's good to borrow as long as it's going to create wealth. The moment you create that wealth, Patrick, then people can pay taxes. Yeah. Right. That's the reason I made it. There's no pissance in it. The National Assembly has a responsibility to say we cannot borrow this much. We borrow, and it's good to borrow, but we misuse that amount we have borrowed. Thika Road, fantastic. If you do the audit of that Thika Road, probably we could have done another road like that.
Right. Interesting. Nairobi Business Monthly, as we saw earlier, Patrick Obath is holding this particular cover of Kivuda Kifwana. And it says Makueni Rising, if we may just look at it from our touchscreen. Right. We've had also members of parliament heading over now to Makueni to benchmark. Right? Is it because they lack strategy? What is the magical wand that Kivuda Kifwana is really?
But I told you
stop them going there.
Let me tell you, unless your head is benchmarked, you can go benchmarking 1,000,000 times. You can't catch. Most of the governors, and I sit with most of them,
yes,
they forget benchmarking when they are in the air before they land in Jomo Kenyatta Airport. They have come from a benchmarking trip. When they are in Jomo Kenyatta Airport, you ask them the benchmarking history, where they went. They can't remember it. Because you see, when we go to benchmark, we must have benchmarked heads, first of all, to go to benchmark. So people go to Rwanda to benchmark, then you ask them, what did you see in Rwanda? They can't even remember when they are in Uganda coming back. So we want to look at it like this. Kibwana, he started very lean. There was this factory for mango that was in Makueni. Before Kibwana, far away before Kibwana. When Kibwana entered to be a governor, do you know he was impeached? And he stood aground.
Yes.
And he said, I am not relenting. People tried to shake him, left, right. He said no. When he won the game, he went into development. So all the governors are worried that Kibwana is making it. They are able to make it, but they are not listeners. They are not understanding. And I had in prayer, I was praying Debarl, and I want to say this here, openly, on media. God is about to make the leaders of this country dumb, blind, and deaf, so that they don't speak, because what they are speaking, we are not hearing. They don't hear. That's what we are saying, they are not hearing.
That's a very pretty heavy.
Let me tell you, I was praying, and I had God in spirit, that God is very bitter. Look at what JKL yesterday, and I want to send you to Jeff Koinange. Let Jeff Koinange not joke with the things of God. When you, this guy called Songo, you heard what he was saying.
I don't want us to go off the rails. No. Let's just skip to the debate. Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll come to that.
I'd like to jump in at this point and this issue of benchmarking. You go to benchmark when you're not tapping the resources you have in your own place. Yes, every county has got resources. People who can think, people who can implement, people who can advise, right? But who do you put in to run your county? Who do you put in as your advisors and your managers in that case? We need to start from there. And I think the same thing as my learned friend Karanja Kabage is saying.
Yes.
the guys you put in the MCAs, and what are they doing, right? They spend all this time sort of trying to impeach the speakers, they do whatever it is.
Governors, impeaching governors.
All they're doing is basically, you know, fighting each other. But when you come to the agenda of development in every county, right? Kifuta Kibwana, all he's done basically is just tapped on the resources he has, and he's moving along. In simplicity. There is no rocket science. There's no need to go and benchmark. Look in your own county, get all the intellectuals and people that you have, sit them down, make them feel wanted. Don't use them for political purposes. And I'm talking like that because I've been approached and I've refused, because the terms on which I've been approached are completely wrong, right? You said, come to my office and please tell me what needs to be done, and then you're sort of spat out like a matchstick that has been chewed. It's completely the wrong thing. We have a lot of resources in this country that just need to be tapped in a structured way, and we don't need to spend the kind of money you're spending to make an impact.
Thank you.
And Kenyans, you don't have to do a lot. 3 things.
Why did you take a short break right now? When we circle back, of course, we'll look at these 3 things and look now deeply in how we can actually foster those austerity measures. And what do you reckon? If the parliament, yes, they will say, we're giving it a thumbs up, where are we left as Kenyans? And how can we tighten now our belts, as the president puts it, that yes, tough times are ahead. They'll dig deeper into our pockets. So where should we look when it comes to austerity measures, and how can we plug this widening chasm where KRA has not been able actually to rake in enough revenue collections as far as recent reports are concerned? So we take a short break right now. When we circle back, we continue with this debate. Also, you can chime in, hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. Also, you'll get a handy opportunity to call in, ask questions, and share your contributions as well. I'll just read 1 or 2, of course, tweets before we take a short break. We have Sambuga. He's saying, let the MPs vote for the 8% of our development, but we need to make sure that the money for development goes not to individual pockets. Also, we have Arthur there saying, the newest stand-up comedy show with Kalomba starring. Yeah. Also, we have Bernard Koech saying, you are 101% correct. In the village, I usually hear people telling their kids, wasome, hata wakipata D, kuna kuandikwa kwa polisi. So people are used to thinking police are those of for those who get D's as well. I think he's commenting also on the police reforms. We have Jimmy Gakuo. The same government is creating duplicated roles to reward its political losers. Why can't they scrap those positions? Wanjiku is for God. The only voice left for Wanjiku is, well, that is his comment. Somebody is really positioning also for their party, Third Way Alliance as well. Also, John Njui is saying our leaders are clowns. Electing new ones won't change anything. It is upon the individuals to thrive without the government. Right, let's take a short break. When we come back, of course, we take your comments as well, and we dig deeper into our discussions this morning on how we can foster austerity measures in this country, looking at the wage bill and other facets of how we can tighten, you know, where we have leakages in the economy. Thank you very much. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching In the Market here on AM Live, where we're discussing today how to foster austerity measures. Today is a crunch day where the parliamentarians, of course, we're eagerly waiting to see how they are going to act. Is it in the wisest of fashion? And are they going to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? This is, of course, the memorandum or the finance bill that was sent back to Parliament as well. And this is the discussion that we're having this morning. In light, if most of them are saying they will give it a thumbs up. So what does it portend for you as Mwananchi? Where are you left at holding this particular skunk, or so to speak, where you'll be saddled with so much responsibility in terms of taxation in this country? And how can we now open our eyes to look at different areas in the sector where we can tighten our belts to try and generate more revenue streams to bridge this widening chasm where we have a bloated wage bill and where we have a deficit also in our economy as far as, of course, the recent reports are concerned. I'm holding court this morning with Charles Kalomba, who is the Secretary General of Engineer Charles Kalomba is the Secretary General of the Jua Kali Sector Federation, also an advisor to the Council of Governors. Also, we do have Patrick Obath with us this morning, Shuse, who is the Vice President of KEPSA Foundation, also is a board member of International Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Vice President of International Chamber of Commerce and Industry Kenya chapter. We do have with us as well Dr. Debarl Inea, who is a lecturer at the University School of Business, and we do have with us as well, I should say, Karanje Kabage, who is an advocate of the High Court and an entrepreneur. Let's continue with this particular discussion so far, and we want to now drill deeper. I think we were leaving it at the three things that you wanted to give us or to peg our thoughts on this morning, Dr. Geturo. What are these three things? I hope you've not lost your train of thought.
I think one of the things I was raising, and I think I want to, one, I think it's important for development, but we need to prioritize. So whatever we're doing, I think one of the things I would suggest is whatever you have, let's prioritize. And I'll give an example. We just finished the SGR.
Yes.
From Mombasa to Nairobi. I think they are very high, their discussion at a very high level to do a dual carriageway to Mombasa from Nairobi. Now, you look at those two, and in terms of the returns from the SGR, what that would do. And I think that we are at the point where we are even borrowing. Even if you talk about PPP,
yes,
we are actually borrowing in a way. So I think it's very important in that way to create that priority.
Yes.
When you borrow, what are the projects which will bring higher returns? And I'll give an example. Almost 10 years ago,
yes,
we had a debate with the IMF and the World Bank. By then I was on side working with the World Bank, and wanted to do a road from Kiserian to Isinya. The bank was insisting, let's do hospital, let's do schools. The IMF said, let's do a road. The entrepreneurs will come in. And I think when you look even the big four in terms of priority,
yes,
there are areas the entrepreneur will come in. We just provide, we borrow for those areas which make it easier for the entrepreneur. The second aspect we need to address is the whole concept of taxation. For information, is a corporate who don't pay a lot. Last 2016, they had actually, perhaps if my figures are here, the leakage in 2016 for corporate income tax was more than what we got.
Okay.
So as even we address the individual, we need to go to the corporate.
We can try and pick that particular graph here. That is the tax revenue and
tax revenue leakage 2016,
value-added tax and the corporate tax.
That's the
there
one.
You go.
The
That's
graph
the
on your right, it's
yes,
where you can see the corporate income tax. Maybe we are color bright. I don't know the color on the light, but you can see it's more than the blue.
Yes.
That means there were more leakages in that one, as opposed to the value-added tax, where people say, okay. So I think we can, and when you get 3 million out of the possible 12 million paying taxes, that's a gap. And I think in my view, Jiraine, JB, should find ways to do it. If you rewind back, 95% during Kemunya's, when he's CS minister, was of the budget was for our taxes. And it was very clear from Kibaki. How did we manage to do that? We need to go back into that. The third aspect I want us to look at, if you look at this country, the level of productivity is damn low.
Yes.
If Patrick puts 1 shilling, he'll be very lucky to get 80 cents. We can't survive that kind of business.
Okay.
Gets 30 cents, that's all.
Yeah, but that now requires for us to do the productivity, we need to do the factors production. How do we work on them? And how do we bring in the performance contracting?
Performance contracting.
Which we threw out of the window.
Thank you. Could you yes, Patrick.
I'm going with Dr. Gitero here around efficiency.
Efficiency.
Because come 5 o'clock today, we will have the tax.
Correct.
We have it. It's going to happen to us. So even as we talk about austerity on the other side, when that comes, what can we do to make that go a much longer? No, to last a lot longer. If I'm going to have the high cost of fuel, my governor Sonko here has got to organize a transport in this city. Because we spend a lot of time burning fuel on the road. So that is one way of saying, fine, you can increase 8% tax on fuel,
yes,
but reduce the consumption of fuel in the city.
Absolutely.
Right? The number of matatus that are hanging around in town waiting for passengers, when really they should not be on the road even at that point in time. Right? KK here used to be in the bus business. You actually schedule your buses.
Oh yes, used to be there. Yeah.
You schedule your buses in according to the load that comes through. Otherwise, they are sitting in a depot waiting.
KK was it in the folded Kenya bus service or what?
Oh, really? Long time ago.
Long time ago.
But when you
not in waiting anymore.
But you know, you look at the efficiency of using the resources that we have in this country.
Yes.
Right? Even if that tax is increased today, and it will be, why can't we just go back and begin to change the way we operate? Right? CS Macharia was talking about this rapid bus transit system.
Yes.
Right? We've got these nice red lines on the thicker road.
Yes.
And they came in very quickly. But where are the buses?
What is the reason of having actually this red line?
On the side of the road.
And you know, these are some of the simple quick wins that even if the cost of fuel goes up, we can still reduce the cost to live, by basically just being more efficient in consuming the resources that are being taxed. We are talking about the issue of transferring money.
Yes.
There is a threshold above which it applies. So why don't I keep everything below that threshold? I sort of plan better and make smaller payments. I don't have to pay if it's above 500,000 shillings. Right?
Absolutely.
So there is austerity given the fact that this is going to happen. We need to drive austerity in terms of consumption. We need to drive to be a lot more efficient in how we use the resources. And at the end of the day, even if the government increases the tax, the net income will go down. I will still be receiving my services at a reasonable price.
Right.
So I think there's two sides of the coin that we need to look at.
Okay. Maybe just to act as a segue, because we need also to really look at the informal sector and look at the recent economic survey 2018, where they had these projections on the wall there. Numbers of new jobs created in formal and informal sector, 2013-2017. And you can see the orange color there is informal sector. Look at the informal sector where it was from 2013. Actually, it's been vacillating, more or less plateauing, taking a dip in 2016 and a marginal increase in 2017. But the informal sector is where it has risen to where it is right now, looking at 787.8. That is the figure that is shown there. And it says analysis of wage employment in the modern sector by industry and sector from 2013 to 2017 is presented, of course, in this table. Overall wage employment in the modern sector increased by 4% in 2017, which was higher than 3% growth registered in 2016. But look at the formal and the informal sector. And this is where we need maybe to also drill deeper with Engineer Charles Kalomba. You are the Secretary General of the informal sector. And this is a huge sector. When we're talking about taxation, and people have been toying and froing on the issue of how do we, if we try and tax the informal sector, then we'll be formalizing the informal sector. What are your projections on this? And maybe we can all of us just, you know, take our thoughts on this particular.
I will just say there is nothing informal here. Informal sector, as we say, the Juakali, they are paying taxes. They pay taxes, and they have licenses. They have a place they are doing their business. However, the majority have no place of business. So as a country, there is laxity. That we don't want to build this sector because during the Vision 2020, these guys were named as the forerunners towards the Vision 2020, Ile Moi. Then 2030 again, we named them to be the forerunners to run the country towards industrial transformation. But if we have not allocated land for them to work from, if we have not put them into systems that we can reach them and tax them and give them incentives for them to work,
yes,
then it means we are just doing zero work. So what there is that the Juakali sector is really suffering. We did a survey with the KNPS, and one of the things that I came up with from the survey is we did not critically say who is where doing what. Who is slaughtering a cow here, and how many hides are we churning out? How are we converting the hides into shoes, into belts? If that does not work, then we cannot do import substitution. So this economy will continue to suffer if the country does not look at the local indigenous industry, who are the Juakali guys. Then you find on the other arm, we have the cross-cutters, like the Bada guys, who are transporting people across the sector. Somebody saying, don't work, put your motorcycle in your house, and yet this guy has borrowed a loan in the bank, and this guy is able to make money and pay taxes, then nobody is concerned, nobody is careful about it. So they are chasing the Bada, they are chasing the Juakali, they are chasing the hawkers, they are chasing the small matatu guys. Where is the economy? That is where the economy is. So nobody in the management system of this country understands how to get the people of this country to pay taxes. So until we put them into system and give them incentives to work, then we see how much they are making and then tax what they are making. This economy will never rise. We shall be like this and borrow and borrow and borrow until we borrow now Chinese to come and help us.
And let's hear from KK Karanja.
Let me respond to a couple of issues. One, I want to talk about transport, because transport is a very important artery in an economic highway.
Yes.
Do you know this is the one country where a very critical industry has been left to be run on an anarchy basis? If you go to any working city in the world, the first thing you see is a functioning transport system. That's the first thing that you need to fix. But in this country, we have left it to everybody to do as they wish. The government came up with a thing called NAMATA. That is Nairobi Metropolitan Transport Authority.
Yes.
It's not working. Nothing is happening. And therefore, transport is yours for everybody. Do as you wish. And the level of corruption, believe you me, in that sector,
very high.
It will kill you. That's why, as Engineer Obad has said, at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, just go to Yaya. See how many matatus have been packed. But the matatu can't make money. I can assure you that. You think you have money, you're making money, you cannot make money. Because the biggest component of transport is what we call engineering costs. When you buy a car or a lorry or a bus, 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, even if it's too new, you begin incurring huge amount of money, more than the income you are making.
Maintenance costs.
So the government must take transport sector as a strategic component of our development strategy.
Yep.
That is the first thing that and should be done on a priority basis. When you talk about the big four, food, security, health, manufacturing, as well as housing, all those things will go nowhere without fixing the transportation system. So that has to be made part of how do we develop, and it cannot be done by county, because we are all interlinked. So there needs to be a transport strategy for this country, and the government must invest money. Do you know our people are going to Tanzania to benchmark about city transport?
And Rwanda.
And Rwanda.
Yes.
Why? Because no government that is thinking about the future without thinking about how do you transport goods and people. Today, all Kenyans are left to fend for themselves because the fares will be increased tomorrow, right? The transport will go as it wishes. So that is a big component that needs to be addressed.
And that happens very willy-nilly. I grew up, of course, with the Kenya bus services.
That is why I just want to come to Kenya Bus.
Yes.
Kenya Bus used to have scheduled system.
Yes, I remember.
All right? So that you knew at about 10:30, this is going to happen. There's no magic about it. You go to London, it's the same thing. You go to New York, it's the same. You go to Paris, the same thing. Everything is like that. But we have ignored that component. And then I don't care what the government does until you fix the transport system. and that also pricing.
Right. So was it in the private sector?
The private sector.
Was it the Kenya Bus Service itself? Was it a component of the government, or was it the private sector?
No, let me tell you. The government is a policy maker. Is the regulator, is the legal authority.
Yes.
If all of us want to be into transport, we will do as we wish. But we need you as the government, policy maker, the regulator, and the legal authority. Now, that has broken down. Tomorrow, the governor will wake up and do anything he wants to do. Right? Then you have the Mungekis who get involved. You have the police that are involved. You have the magistrate. You have everybody. Transport is a terrible situation in this country. And until we fix that, and I would like to say, in this national television,
yes,
part of the way forward for Uhuru Kenyatta is transport must be fixed.
Fully agree.
There is no question about that.
Right.
The second thing I want to talk about is...
Could we just hold it, because we'll come to you, Kabage, and ask Patrick Obath and also Dr. Gituro, because we've been talking about mainstreaming the transport sector for a while right now. Yes. And I remember also the Minister of Metropolis? Metropolitan. Yeah, that was Mutula Kilonzo or the Gidai, yes.
No, Mutula was the first.
He was the first, and then we had Gidai as well, who's now the ambassador in the US. He was really talking about also the buses, and we saw, you know, one or two buses here in the country which were actually doing a pilot sort of project to make sure how feasible this project will be. But we're talking, this is almost 10 good years right now. Still, we're talking about NATA right now.
Yes.
We are talking mainstreaming the transport sector. We're always in the planning phase as a country. Good proposals all day long. But when it comes to implementation, that is a different kettle of fish altogether. So you pick up a transport as a critical element on this. I want you just to weigh in. So how do we uncouple the talking and put on action? And who are the people who can put tails on this, some of the statements that we have press conferences, we have the red lines now on Thika Highway. We ask, what is the rhyme or reason of actually having these red lines? Where is this rapid transport system that we're talking about?
I think Karanja Kabage has actually, he's given you the first answer.
Yes. The second is implementation, yes.
The government is a policy maker. They will give you all the regulations and everything else. But when the government then becomes the implementer, you have issues. Yes. And that really is where we are at, right? The Metropolitan Agency and everything else has been put in. They're supposed to sort out transport. They're supposed to do everything else. They can't do it. They can actually create a master plan.
Yes.
They can create a framework, and then they invite people to invest in that area. And the investment can be several ways. One, you can have fully private investment in roads and transport. They've done that in Malaysia very successfully. But they started off with public-private partnerships. Not saying, here's a project, can you invest? But a public-private partnership where both parties sit down and design together. Currently, most of the public-private partnerships in this country are designed on one side, then come and put your money in. And I look at that thing and I'll say, hang on, change this, change that, change this, and effectively you begin to knock heads. And everybody's trying to protect their turf. But if you work on a public-private partnership, yes, where we work together to deliver and everybody has got their own, there's a social delivery which the government has got, and then there's economic delivery which I have as an investor. Together, we can make it work for both of us. So even as we have all these authorities being done, we need to be clever in the way we structure the delivery. And the government should not be the person to deliver those things. The SGR is a government project.
Yes.
Fine. And see all the questions that are being asked around the SGR. Yeah. If they had had a certain partnership with, say, British Rail or whatever it is and so forth, because it's exactly the same thing. British Rail is basically an owner of infrastructure.
Yes.
And then other people come and put their rolling stock on top. Right? And then they make money on the rolling stock. And they make money on hiring the infrastructure. That could have been a different kettle of fish in Kenya.
Yes.
But no, we've done it the wrong way. So I think in terms of getting all these blueprints off, we need to really change the model of delivery. And it's not the government.
Dr. Gituro.
Yeah, I want to make something clear from my friend Patrick. SGR is not a government project. You are paying taxes for it. It's Kenya's people project.
I know.
We have only told the government to do it. Malaysia, as he talks about, is very interesting. They have a 10.
But we were not consulted. Was there any public participation? There was no, yeah. So how can we don't have ownership? We've been shoehorned to pay for this taxes.
In the sense that, where does the funding come from?
Huh?
Where does the funding come from?
You. From the people.
It's us. Yeah. The government is just a custodian.
That's what I'm saying. Where is the funding coming from?
Yes.
We were forced to pay for this project. We were not consulted.
Paying for it.
Yes.
But Malaysia is interesting, and they have a very. You go to Malaysia today, they give you a 10-pointer. If you're an investor, this is what you give for you. But let's talk about, even in terms of what are they saying, how did Michuki manage? He put senses in the transportation. You just need positive dictator.
Yes.
A positive. I talked to the churches last week, the meeting they had in Fogamano. And when I said that, they all shouted me down.
That is the National Dialogue Conference, yes.
Yes. And they agreed. I was going for Bavarian dictator, but they said, no, it's a positive dictator. That's what Michuki was. That's how the transport works in this town. I don't want this nonsense that you wake up and you're going the way you want. Some order. Saturday, a friend of mine just come from Kigali. 8 o'clock, the president is there jogging and cleaning with the people. Very clear in his mind what you need. If you go to Rwanda, Kigali is just like in Geneva. Here, if you step like 5 kilometers from here and leave past the Gara, you're in a different house. I don't think what we need to address here, and we also know the saying.
Yes.
The fish starts rotting from the head. We need to step back and bring this no-nonsense management of our economy. And I think that's what, to me, the bottom line, we can talk about this, we can talk about that management of us. And I think it's very important when you look in terms of I wake up, I want to do what I want. I wake up, I want to do that. And that's what you find he is talking about. If you go to infrastructure and go back to the Vision 2030, and I think somebody took the eye out of the Vision 2030, infrastructure is an enabler.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
It's a bottom, it's an enabler. We can't do the big four if we don't have here.
Yeah, but the government has really tried to streamline the infrastructure and even the ports right now. Looking at this editorial cartoon that we have in the Daily Nation today, looking at the ferry as well. Could we talk about the small components they've really talked about, like the single window system, the clearance at the ports? I thought these were things that will actually generate a lot of revenue. That yes, it will put down the lead time processes that we have of clearing cargoes and containers, demurrage costs down there. But the corruption that is there, when we look at this editorial cartoon as well, how we thought this will be nice entries also of tax revenue streams for the country.
Let me tell you something.
Was it a magical wand?
The window, the single window, the design and everything else is perfect.
Great.
Right?
Yeah. Just the FMEs.
How many agencies have got to subscribe to using the single window? Right? KRA does not want to use it because they say that our system is better than that.
Simba. Whatever
the Simba is now being changed to something else. So if all the agencies themselves are actually not using that thing, the single window is dead. So, as Dr. Gisoro said, you need somebody with a sledgehammer at the top.
So the single window, no one is actually...
You guys, forget about all your territories. We are using the single window system, and if you don't make it work, you're out.
Absolutely. But that's what I want to comment.
What has got to happen.
But Patrick, what I want to comment is that, you see, in the Bible they say the word of the king should not be left to fall to the ground. It's only in Kenya where the word of the king falls to the ground. We have only one pilot in this aircraft called Kenya.
Yes.
This pilot must be very critical to take us where we are going. And it's the pilot who says, get in, safety in your belt, we are going. Now, there is no synergy in the system of current system. There is no synergy. This ministry is on its own like a government. This one is on its own as a government. Like when you look at SGR, why, if we talk about as a country, where is the Minister of Energy in SGR to provide energy, to rule it, to run it on electricity? Where is the Ministry of Environment to look at the strategies of how SGR will penetrate through other areas? So every ministry in this economy should be able to think about SGR as a priority project to make sure that we finish it to the best practice, professional best practice, to bring value. When we talk about ferries, these ferries, you go to Mombasa. Even the other day, Makwere was saying every Kenyan must pay 1 shilling, 1 shilling, 1 shilling. Because it's a strategy. You get guys into a punishment to pay you money. you go to Japan,
yes,
in Kobe, and see a bridge which is 10 times longer than Likoni. Then you wonder, are they wiser than us? They could be wiser than us. What can we do on this to make a bridge so that no Kenyans will be... If you go to Mombasa and be in Mombasa at 11 o'clock in the night, you can't go back to Kwale. You will be there up to 2 o'clock in the night because the ferry cannot carry you alone. Maybe 3-4 guys. You can't go in the ferry 3-4 guys. So I think the economy is wavering because nobody is thinking wiser. We just need to persuade our leaders to think wiser than we are thinking today. So the Juakali guys, and Dr. was not here when we were talking, and I said the Big Four agenda is a myth until we shall make it Big Five. You know, in the wilderness we have Big Five. Yes. So President Uhuru was misadvised to make Big Four other than Big Five. And we are saying Big Five, it will be Big 4 plus 1, which is Juakali. So if we don't borrow and facilitate Juakali to grow as an industry, then we can never do import substitution. Then we cannot have the GDP growth.
But the argument has been advanced even before that Juakali is in the Big Four, the manufacturing sector.
It is not there.
What do you mean it's not there?
I'm the Secretary General. Who put us there?
No, I think the point.
How did we enter?
I think the point to the bar is
yes.
The Big Four are the doables. The Juakali are the ones to do it.
Yes.
And I think they are still good. But what we need to do, if we look at manufacturing, let's mainstream the Juakali in it.
Yes.
When you look at health, let's mainstream in them.
Okay.
I think it cuts across.
Right. Let's say from KK, you are at number 2.
One thing that I must commend the government, and I really hope the model of Kibwana is going to be taken very seriously. Health has to become part and parcel of how we do everything. And if national health insurance program is completely made to permit across the entire country,
yes,
to me, that is going to be very, very important. And I'll tell you why. The cost of medical services is crippling. Whether you are rich or poor, you cannot afford to run it through your own personal resources.
Yes.
So as a country, let us make sure that the National Hospital Insurance Fund is not an exception to some people. It is completely mainstreamed as a strategy of how we deal with the health of the nation. For me, that is very, very important. And that's one success area the government can flag very, very shortly, as Kibwana has demonstrated. All right? And I am very passionate about Kibwana. Kibwana was my lecturer.
Yes.
When I was at the University of Nairobi doing law, he taught me what is called legal theory and jurisprudence. And let me tell you, Kibwana is not doing things there that are just imagined.
Yes.
He has thought through.
For a long time.
He has thought through. He's not a person who, if you have been taught by Kibwana, you know Kibwana thinks, right? So
yes,
the people of Makueni are very lucky. They have a thinker and a doer.
Yes.
Assistant.
And a man who believes in what these people are calling the dictator,
benevolent,
positive dictator.
Benevolent
Kibwana
dictator.
is not going to be just moved around because anybody makes noise.
It is true.
Very, very crucial.
Yes.
Because leadership is painful. When you take leadership, forget elections. Forget elections. You have to do what you have to do. Like Uhuru has to do what he has to do in order for this country to run, whether we like it. And I'm very grateful that the Right Honorable Prime Minister and Kalonzo, they are coalescing on these very critical issues about the budget, because this is a national agenda and it has nothing to do with Uhuru. Because if the country grinds to a halt, whether you are in opposition or not, you are in trouble.
Thank you.
Now, finally, let me put it this way. The furniture section, the best people to handle furniture.
Could you, before you go to the furniture, because I want to also tag along with the issue of the NHIF and the health sector as well, which you say is very robust. Because Globocan has come up with a recent report that puts Kenya, when it comes to cancer, and this was actually in the Business Daily, when you just pick it up there. Kenya now is leading in East Africa right now. It tops Uganda and Tanzania in cancer deaths. And it is, if you read this particular statistics, is appalling, because it says that Kenya has the highest number of cancer-related deaths across East Africa. This is the new data by the World Health Organization, and it kills 39,987 Kenyans a year. An estimated 40% of the 83,426 deaths reported in the 3 East African nations. This is a huge figure.
Which is very, very important. First of all, we are benefiting from the following. One, the diagnostic sophistication
Yes,
is much more advanced here than these other places, which is good to know what is your problem. Secondly, Kenyans are conscious about their health, right? And that is important. That's why I'm saying when the president flagged issue of health as a key component of the way forward, he put the finger in the right place. Because without health, any one of us could not even be here if we are uncomfortable health-wise. And for me, that is something that we must invest in and invest very, very seriously. And that's why the institution called National Hospital Insurance Fund must not be just seen as another thing. It has to be seen as a life expectancy provider.
Thank you.
In this country.
But yes.
This issue of this high cancer deaths and everything else, I think just go back 10, 15 years ago and look at HIV.
Yes.
When we started testing for HIV in Kenya, all of a sudden the statistics went skyrocketed.
Yes.
Right? And then we were able to control it. You have to find out what you have before you can manage it.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you go back to when C.S. Macharia was in health,
yes,
what did he do? He started putting a whole range of diagnostic things on a rental basis in all the counties, right? Some of the counties actually took that on board, and what happened? These statistics began to come out, right? So I think the whole essence of basically diagnostics before you actually implement is important. And this just demonstrates really why it is important to be able to discern what needs to be done, what the problem is, and then design the solution.
Engineer, I wanted to add we should not lose the argument whether Tanzania or Kenya are doing better.
Yes.
I think the best thing is to go for it. And I like his point.
But it could be an indicative,
and I can
indicative
tell you
of what is...
There's a chama, we are 30 of us. For you to join the chama, you must have that card. Very clear, very private.
NHIF.
Yes. Because what we say at the end of the day, if you die and you're asking us for money for medical, we will not. You are an opportunity. To me, it's how much to me. And it's only 6,000 in a year.
In a year.
6,000 a year. How much you spend a night?
But you, Dr. you assume that is affordable to many Kenyans.
No,
there are people in the villages who cannot really afford that
6,000. We can do it differentiated. I can pay more, they can pay less. And we cover everybody.
Yes.
It's easy. That if my friend here, I can pay for 10 people.
Yes.
That's about what? 60,000.
Yes.
Another one can pay for 100. Then that one you can ask him for 2 shillings or something like that. So we cover everybody.
I want to weigh something on that, but the guy wanted to speak about Juakali. He is the only person who has been on this panel, and he has never, I don't know his mind about Juakali. And he wanted, then you cut him short. Why don't we allow him to talk about Juakali? Because that's my passion.
I'll tell you what.
Yes.
And I want any one of you to take a trip from here, from the great corner, from the junction, all the way to one's current.
Yes.
The furniture that is being done by those people, it's amazing. You give them even anything, tell them I want this example.
Yes.
They'll produce it at quality.
Yes.
Now, where they are temporary tenants.
Correct.
The government has identified about 90 acres, which are next to the show ground. Now, if the government wants to create a functioning industry, we should have about 10 Juakari industries for furniture in the entire city of Nairobi. And let me tell you, the economic activity that will come out of there, we don't have to import furniture, believe you me. And I want to invite anybody to come to my office. The furniture that I have was done in Kenya, and it's 20 years, and I have never repainted it.
Yeah, right.
I have never repainted it. And I believe the Kenyan artisan can produce top quality. But we must deliberately and consciously invest in the factory, in the machines, give them a hospital there, or a clinic, give them a bank there, give them a cafeteria, give them, our people will do things you have never seen.
All right.
I wanted that clearly because you see now you have had something.
Yes.
And
just punish our
I am the co-chair to the Professor Lonyangapuo in the Ministry of Industry Association when it's a PS.
Yeah.
When the Kibaki gave us a circular to ban importation of furniture and for local market should be produced locally.
Yes.
I was the co-chair to the PS. I will tell you what happened. Very sad story. So what the Daktari has said, he has given me hope because
I'm not yet. I'm just Karanja Kamani.
Yes. At least you are delivering a daktari here, so it can affect you, osmosis. Now, we went to Ngong Road with the president.
Okay.
Yes, and we took him to Ngong Road Furniture.
Okay.
And with Songo, and they gave a very refined statement.
Yes.
And I respected the president so much because he said, why do you focus the road to pass through these guys who are productive? Can you push the road the other side? And that's what I'm talking about, the word of the king. The road was pushed by designers. Then I understood, oh, so it is, these things can be done when the word of the king is in place. Now the road has been pushed. But the land was identified. You know, I'm getting challenges because even the land where it was identified now, to date, those guys in Juakali, they don't understand where the land is. Me personally, who led the delegation, don't understand what is happening. At the end of the day, you will find that the land was allocated. It was shared for plots. That's the sad story. So we are talking about the word of the king. If the president says give them land, it must be given. 10 industries for furniture, quality furniture in Nairobi, and I like the way you have said it. Then Daktari, you went with to school with which box? Was it a Juakali box?
Of course, all of us.
Everyone, isn't it?
White and blue is the national color for boxing.
Yes. From Juakali. These guys, everybody says, oh, Juakali, you know, the name is very bad, change the name.
No.
Then I asked them, which name? Jua means what? No. It means means knowledge.
Yes.
Kali means what? Sharp. So these guys have sharp knowledge, doing what the book says without reading the book.
So it's Juakali.
Yeah, Juakali means knowledge. Yes, and it's in the Bible. You read the book of Exodus. Yeah. So on weighing on this, I want to weigh on the way he said about NHIF and the health of Kenya. Debarl, when you lose about 20 kgs, don't allow people to tell you, hey, umekonda, you will die. Well, this report is about telling Kenya umekonda so that Kenyans can die. This is a myth. The style of life of Kenyan, the lifestyle in Kenya is different from lifestyle in Tanzania and Uganda. The food quality in Uganda and Tanzania is not the same food quality in Kenya. Kenyans eat aflatoxin majorly. What do you expect?
What do you expect? I have also a text here from my lecturer. He taught me international procurement. He's asking, why can't we utilize those monies in NSSF, NHIF, the pension fund for low-costing housing instead of overtaxing Kenyans?
Domestic borrowing.
Yes. What about the unclaimed assets?
No.
Yes. These monies are the unclaimed, because we never told where the government is investing with this money. We don't know. They're never actually telling Kenyans that you have an unclaimed asset which runs into billions, right, in this country. Almost how much? 25 billion, almost 30 billion. But we've never been told how this particular money from the Unclaimed Asset Authority is being spent.
I will speak from having been on the NSSF board in the past. The reality is that that opportunity is there. But the way that that particular institution has been shackled by the government is such that anything creative like that will be shut down.
Why?
Because of the way, because of interests that are looking at that money differently, right? Singapore developed housing for everybody through its social security.
Absolutely.
Patrick, this is our money.
Which is very simple, and it is us.
No, Patrick.
You have employers and you have the trade unions in NSSF, right? But they're not the majority. And they can't, but also the fact that you cannot pass anything without their agreement asks the government to hell. They don't want to have that shackle that you can't dispense with that money unless the employers and the and the unions agree. So there is a lot of machinations going there in terms of moving that money into areas that the government representatives want it to go. So I think if we let it work the way it should work, the same as NHIF, if it is designed with what Keke was talking about in terms of creating universal health, like Kibuda Kibana has done, it is possible. It's just that the will at that level is not there.
And these guys
so
will be having
remove government.
3 trillion.
Yeah.
If you look at SACCOS, RBA, Hospital Fund, NSSF,
all those
could be having over 3 trillion.
Unclaimed assets.
Packaging of it.
Yes. Including that, yeah.
Because I'll be very wary to taking my money for a responsible system. For example, if we are going to do the second runway,
yes,
NSSF can do that.
Yes.
You can do it.
And get their money
without
back.
going to that expensive
And
out
recoup
there.
their investment.
And I know my money is going to bring the sun. I know I'll get returns.
Yeah.
But we must package it that I have confidence that I'll get returns. It's actually cheaper.
Right.
Domestically borrowed.
Right.
You have a third person in the house.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you must look at the international community.
Right.
You have an interest. When
I
you talk
have
about
3 minutes
domestic
to wind up, and I think the critical issue also that we need to look at is the wage bill. And
Yes.
Dr. Gituro, just briefly as we are preparing our headline thoughts as well. Yeah, we have it. We can pick it clearly. That is the comparative wage bill. Huh?
Yeah. If you can put the wage bill.
Yes.
2016. You got it on the screen?
Yeah, we got it on the screen. There you go.
There it tells it all. If you look at in terms of the wage bill as a percent of GDP, Kenya, it's the one on your right completely. It's over everybody in the middle. And you have there, you have ECA, you have SA, you have EAP, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East and North Africa, you have Caribbean. You can see in terms of how much they are spending in terms of their GDP. You go to the same, you can see what they are spending in terms of their revenue. So you can actually see we are far off than anybody else. And I've taken the parts of the world. I'm looking at South America, I'm looking at Southeast Asia, I'm looking at those countries in the former East Europe. And this is, to me, is a thing we need to address. As much as we are talking about, we are going to increase the taxes. How do we address in terms of our overspending?
Overspending.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My brother here, the car he drives, and the car the people are driving in the government, are very different. And probably his return is very high. I have somebody who comes to see me, you have a Prado in Nairobi as your car. Your chaser is a Prado. What sense does it make?
It doesn't make any sense.
We
need to be winding up right now.
Yeah,
yes.
We had something we are talking about. When Uhuru was a minister for finance, he said we get a Passat. I don't know what's happened. Now they are actually back into that luxury vehicles. I think things we can really...
Let's see from Karanja Kabage, then this will act as your headline thoughts as well, sir.
Yeah, very quickly. I want to address 3 things, but very quickly. One is a housing development fund that the CS for transport and infrastructure has proposed. I think it's a brilliant idea. We should support it. And more importantly, what he said, that if you don't get housing out of that program, you get your refund. That means you're investing, and that is a brilliant idea. Now, the second one is that the Singapore NSSF model that he's talking about. Do you know who was the man in charge of that ministry, of that fund? The Prime Minister himself. He built, when Lee Kuan Yew was leaving that place, he had built a $35 billion fund in NSSF. Patrick and I are privileged. We have served in the board of NSSF in our capacities as chairman of Federation of Kenya Employers. Okay? I'll tell you what, we don't even have 2 billion shillings.
Thank you.
We don't have in that thing. Now, finally,
yes, I
think right now, as a component of our future capital mobilization, I would recommend the government rethinks 2 things, SACCOs and NSSF, and established a way we can mobilize internal resources. Absolutely. Because IMF and World Bank, they don't have the same mandate with us as a country. And I will say this publicly. Let nobody be romantic about IMF and World Bank. These institutions, 2 of them, Bretton Woods institutions, they are to put Africa down. Believe me, and I have not seen any country that under the prescription of IMF and World Bank that has developed.
Thank you. And of course, I think next time we'll look at the art of negotiation, even with China. Do we have a good negotiation, art as a country as well? Gituro, your closing remarks? Yes.
I don't want to get into, I think whatever it takes, the bottom line is having a very strong leadership, what I call positive dictatorship. That's what we need.
Is there anything positive about dictatorship?
Yes.
Yes. Positive.
Yes. Positive. What did who was Lee Kuan Yew?
Okay.
He was.
But my freedom of expression, how positive will I be? Will I be an anchor?
Will you eat that freedom of expression?
Yeah. But look at our friend, neighbor.
Briefly, yes.
Yeah. And I think Kagame has come very strongly. I think this country belongs to us all. We would like as much to take these taxes to the last mile. As long as we take to the last mile to Wanjiku, we benefit as a country.
Thank you.
Yeah. We must see, and I agree with Patrick, I'm willing to pay taxes, but I must see the benefits.
You must see the benefit.
Yeah.
True. I think that should be the takeaway message today. Willing to pay taxes, see the benefits.
Two things in my parting shot.
Yes.
I've just Googled here because I can't remember his name. A gentleman called Jose Mujica, or as we say in our local lingo, Jose Mujica, who is the president of a country called Paraguay, Uruguay, sorry.
Uruguay, yeah.
Right? The guy who goes to work in the VW.
Yes.
All our politicians should go and benchmark in Uruguay.
Uruguay, yes.
That is probably a trip I would pay for.
When we're talking about austerity measures.
Yes, yes. That is a place they should go.
Because immediately they are paying for it.
And there is a place I'd pay to take them to go and talk about proper austerity measures.
Absolutely.
Benchmark with Jose Mujica.
Second
one.
Yes.
A working democracy is the only thing that can follow a positive dictatorship.
Absolutely.
A working democracy will not allow us to develop. It will basically stifle us.
Yes.
So I'm fully with Dr. Gituro.
Thank you.
Let's have a positive, positive dictatorship followed by a working democracy once we sorted ourselves out.
All right.
Debarl, if Michuki rose from the grave today, I'm telling you the truth, Kenyans will elect him as the president of this country. They will not run away from him because of what he did. And I will tell you, if you don't know how to manage your own house, your neighbors will be the best managers for your house. Because they will show your children what is wrong with your father. And they'll come in and manage your house. So IMF, World Bank, name them. They are our neighbors. So they come to manage because we don't know how to manage. If we strictly adhere to strict management of this economy,
yes,
I am telling you, nobody will be talking. People will be quiet and they will leave us aside.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
I've always compared with you, I say Kenya should benchmark with Japan. Not the region.
Thank you.
Japan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Right. Engineer Charles Kalomba, who is Secretary General of the Joe Kali Federation of Kenya and also an advisor to the Council of Governors. Thank you for coming through. Patrick Obath, who is the Vice President of KEPSA Foundation, also the President of International Chamber of Commerce, Kenya chapter, and the board member of the same. We thank you internationally. And we thank you also Dr. Gituro Wanaina, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Business. Thank you for coming through. Karaja Kabage, who's an advocate of the High Court and also an entrepreneur. Thank you for coming through this morning. I think the conversation should go on. Let's see where it will be heading after today's Parliament and the voting that will be, of course, being carried inside the House as well. Also, valued company that you've given us. We are absolutely grateful for that. I'll be remiss if I just don't read one or two before we wind up. We have David Ngoy saying the refusal to implement fully its clauses is costly, like keeping on the provincial administration. Poetic justice, paying taxes in this country doesn't make sense. For the last 5 years, there has been nothing to show. Now you've aptly put it. The taxes are going into debt management, not development, which is quite unfortunate. Also, Nathaniel Arab Chumo with impressive attire. I think this is engineer's attire. Charles Kaloma making convincing arguments on the topical issue. Also, Amin Yusuf saying Kenya's economy is in recession and the government don't have money to cover budget deficit. Now, the government will put more efforts to strike the pockets of the taxpayers for recovery instead of other physical policy measures. And in the spirit, of course, of gender parity, my director Diana, seriously, Jay Wambush is saying, we all knew that ever since his name was mentioned the first day. Tell us about the wife. Where was our aide put on a crime scene? I think this is in relation to the story that we carried earlier about Obado as well. Thank you for your valued company. Living with us is up next.